It's okay now, Kumar?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to this wonderful webinar. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this wonderful webinar, and it's absolute pleasure to actually have you, all of you, on this webinar today, and sort of waiting to hear from this panel of experts that we have today with us. So I'd like to start, just by introducing all of the speakers that we have today. So first, like to introduce Deepak D'Souza, who's the Indian production director for India for Decathlon Sports. And we also have Hemant, who who will be joining us very shortly on this call. He's the country leader for logistics for Decathlon Sports. And then we have Vishal, who's the country supply referent for Decathlon Sports again. And then we have Aviral Sharma also, who's the procurement leader for Decathlon Sports. So I think it's a very heavyweight mix of panel right now that we have with us, for especially for this webinar. And I think there you'll probably take up a lot of insights from this particular discussion. So I was actually I'm very actually interested about this discussion that we're supposed to have, because I think Decathlon is one of the few companies who does really good at what some of the things that you really do well. Are like, for example, you maintain the everyday low prices structure and still maintain that quality. Then there is this entire sphere around the sports ecosystem that you've created, and you continually sort of maintain that, and at the same time imbibe that entire culture into your entire workforce. And I think heard a lot about that, and it just sort of, I've heard raving reviews about actually working at Decathlon. And so I think what I'm really interested to actually have this discussion, and I think Hemant has also joined us. So what I really want to know, and is, first of all, welcome to the webinar, and thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, so do you guys, and anyone want to take up, sort of the first question? I think Deepak, would you want to go first? How does Decathlon sort of keep your prices so low? How do you manage to keep the prices so low even after maintaining very high standards of quality? And what are some of the best solutions that Decathlon has actually implemented in the supply chain in order to maintain that, that kind of pricing structure, the quality, and even the entire distribution model?
Thank you. Thanks for the question, and a very good evening to all the viewers on this platform. Very interesting question. So how I would probably approach this answer is that, first of all, the purpose of Decathlon is making the pleasure and benefit accessible to all. So that's the strong purpose all of us are working for. So when we have such a strong purpose, we have to ensure that we have to make the product accessible to all. So when we talk about accessibility, price is one of the key factors. So we have a lot of strategies in our manufacturing side. First of all, I'll not take a long time, but we have a partnership which is a strategy which is called partnership, which means we have a very strong relationship with our manufacturing partners. Second, we work a lot on the industrial cost suppliers, which means we work with each other. Of course, our target is not to reduce their profit, but it's to ensure that they are efficient. They are transforming well on the manufacturing side. So this is another strategy. And then thanks to this purpose, we sell a lot of quantities. So which means our quantities are very huge. So that allows us to have a business plan, a kind of forecast which is much more larger. So all these strategies combined, what happens is when we work with our manufacturing partners, we are able to give them a clear visibility. What we want for next 2 months, what we want for the next 6 months, what we want for 1 year. And we have something called as permanent products. We have something called as the mid-range and these are all our internal terms, but I just try to explain that these are some are permanent products, some are the collection product. So this helps us to work with our manufacturing partners in a long term. And last but not the least, we try to master the whole value chain. So I give an example of textile, which is very simple. So we completely go on the complete integration, for example, of the yarn. The yarn is the first product of the material. So we master completely the yarn. We have a partnership with the yarn supplier so that even the product which is produced, it has a particular specification and technical standards. So right from yarn, right from component, right from finished good, we work collaboratively and we work very collectively with our supplier as per the Decathlon standards in order to maintain the quality, in order to maintain the efficiency, in order to also to maintain the homogeneity of the product, because we have more than 62, we sell in more than 62 countries, but we also produce in more than 20 countries. So what is important is to have the homogeneity of this product in all the countries where we produce. So that's about it. I can speak a lot, but I mean, these are the main strategies we deploy in the manufacturing side. I hope it's clear.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for this. I think it was a pretty detailed discussion about how you actually do this, but I mean, still impressive with the fact that, I mean, as you said, I mean, right, it's Decathlon operates around, over 60 plus countries, right? And has probably around more than 1,700 stores across all the entire world. And I think that itself is, sort of impressive, given the scale. You still, sort of maintain that homogeneity across all of these countries. And that's really, I think, one of the things that really stands out, and that's one thing which really intrigues me, how we do that. But thank you so much for that detailed explanation. And, so first, I think the next question, that we already received from one of the community members is that, how is sort of, and I think, Hemant, would you want to take this up? How is Decathlon sort of going to build like, sort of a sports ecosystem in India? Because sports is like one of the core pillars for Decathlon, right? And when you say, when Decathlon says sport for all and all for sport, I think that really stands out, right? And and then makes it stand out from the crowd. And so what is actually Decathlon doing to build that ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting question from a outside point of view, because for us it's something that we don't realize it when we do it, but we're very conscious about it, because I think that's the entire purpose of Decathlon being the sports company, and we really want to build the ecosystem. And that's where, from the way we conceptualize our stores, if you see that you can always come to a store, you can always practice the sport yourself. India as a market is not, I mean, it's not comparable to Europe, where the availability of sports grounds is not the same. And that means even in the stores, we always invest to make sure that you have enough sports facilities available, at least in most of the stores in the city that where we're present. And now we are even looking at going much more deeper into the services as well. We have our All for Sport app or the website, which helps you to, online classes, connect you with the coaches or the ecosystem that you have around in terms of sport, not just inside Decathlon, but what is available with respect to coaches or the sports enthusiasts around you that can help you to form a community as well. Almost every store has a community for every single sport. Some of them are very well recognized, almost 50 to 60,000 people in some of the running community and cycling community that we have. Hiking is very famous in the north of India, and that's how we kind of bring people together. And even a lot of times we get this question that you're present a lot in metros, what do you do for the rest of the country, and that's where we push to have resellers as well, along with the coaches, what we now call as the projects to enter into the deeper markets of India through influencers, through help them to, even there make the sports accessible to everyone who are interested to practice sports. Even going to tier 3 cities, so we believe, like you said, the ecosystem is more important. May not always with the store. Of course, the business model is very important, but that's where we use whatever is available to make sure we make it even bigger, and then make the sports accessible either through us or through the help of people that are interested in sports. So that's how we do it. So we have our e-commerce apps, we have our stores, we have our coaches and influencers who helps us to reach out more people. We have the smaller version of stores in the tier 3 cities, or even now including the B2B resellers, that helps us even to go into deeper markets like Northeast, Jammu and Kashmir as well.
Right. And so you mentioned these communities that you sort of build, one around cycling, for example, right? In cities like Bangalore, I think that must be working out pretty well. So honestly, I mean, I think are all of your employees actually, part of these communities, one somewhere or the other, and is that also encouraged, within the employee, the organization?
See, I think all of us can answer this question. Yes, of course, we have. You won't believe we even have KPIs to how many number of sport we play in a month or a week. It's part of our KPI to say. So we actively encourage. I wish I can. If the window is open, I could see you. I'm just sitting in the warehouse, and there's a playground right there, and there are people playing. So it's part of our culture, part of how we want to live our life inside as a Decathlonian.
Right.
And there are, like you said, community is one thing, but we always practice sport through the team, with the teams, and any activity in Decathlon starts with a sport or ends with a sport. Yeah.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Hemant, for that. Insight onto how it is like to actually work at Decathlon. But coming to that, I think one of the next questions that I want to take up was, and I think this is for all of you, and so maybe you can take it up in any order you wish. I think if you want to start with Aviral, then probably and then move on to Deepak, or probably start with Vishal. Right? What are the roles that you will sort of looking out for in supply chain management at Decathlon? And would you care to shed some more light on that, and sort of explain this to our entire viewing community?
Okay, so I think I'll start this part because I represent a demand planning side. Just to give you a brief idea about supply chain in Decathlon, we have mainly 4 verticals that includes demand planning, so which is kind of a job of a retail supplier. Then we have procurement, which is CPM, we call it as. So basically, a retail supplier work closely with the CPM. I let Aviral continue that what a CPM does once I finish this part. So basically, a retail supplier is responsible to do forecast the quantity, the business for the coming season or the coming year. Let's say if I'm managing a particular sport, so I have to decide what level of quantity I need to buy for the future. So I predict these quantities and I decide the demand for a particular season. And then I discuss with my procurement team that includes Aviral's team. So maybe Aviral can explain then after that what happens and what role comes there. So one part I explained, that is one role, and I let Aviral to continue from here about the second role.
Thank you for the question, Kumar. Welcome to all the viewers also. So as Vishal explained, the start of supply chain from our side is it's basically store, because we sell what we produce. So based on that, our sports team calculate the demand, which Vishal explained, which is basically the forecast on the different type of models. Also, the sports team is responsible to choose the products that we are going to have for our customers or the users. And then comes the role of a procurement manager. So procurement in Decathlon's way of working is somewhere organized as a bridge between production teams, our production teams worldwide, and our sports team based in India. The main job of procurement is to decide where to procure from, basically to decide which particular model or which particular style of a product will be produced in which country. Okay, we have around 5,500 products today that we offer to our users, and we have around 32, I would say, production units in Decathlon terms that we are procuring from. So based on the different typology of the product, be it shoes, be it textile, be it fleece jacket, be it your balls, be it a scooter, the auxiliary scooter for the kids. So different categories of products are produced in different parts of the world. Also, for procurement in India, today one of the biggest strategy is made in India. Just to give you a number, today we are 55% of our turnover comes from the products that are made in India, and around 60 to 65% of our quantities that we sell to our users are made in India. So India is one of a very, I would say, a strategic or a fantastic DPP, which is around 24 industrial processes available locally. So that is also one part of our job. Our main job is to make sure that the product is coming from a DPP who can handle the uncertainty that is needed during the season, because we have seen during the time of COVID, the trends of sales has been very volatile because of lockdowns, because of store openings, certain rules and regulations in certain states. So based on the product, what are the uncertainties that we need? What are the price points that we are offered? Because today, accessibility, as Deepak explained, is one of the very big criterias for us to be, I would say, successful in our purpose to make sports accessible to the many. And then we try to work with the local sports team and the local production team on even N+2. So let's say we are in 2022. We even work on a tactical horizon. We call it tactical N+2 in Decathlon terminology. But we try to even work on 2024, what models we are going to have. What are the volumes we're talking about? How much of it can we do it in India? How much of it can we do outside and things like that. So it's basically a business sharing decision job on the procurement side, and to work very, very closely with sports and production. Because I mean, it's I would say
A lot of goes hand in hand.
I mean, I wouldn't say, because I think we have a strong production team and sports team in place. It's easier for us to work, but at times there are also certain strategic decisions that we need to take. But otherwise, I think it's we usually have people in our team who either come from sports background. I mean, their experience in the science sports or their experience in the production, so that they can take the right level of decisions, because it's a decision making. But I would like maybe Deepak. I would like to invite him to give more inputs on the production side.
Deepak, we can't hear you. You're actually mute. So.
Sorry, you would like me to talk about the roles in
Yes,
production?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, as Aviral well explained about how we are doing the procurement. So each country has also certain prerequisites. We have industrial processes, and inside these industrial processes, we have different kinds of products. So, for example, even when you talk about a textile product has three different classifications. You have natural knit, which has to be produced differently. You have woven, which has to be produced differently. You have synthetic products, swimwear products, which has to be produced differently. Gloves are produced in a different factory. Socks are produced in a different factory. When a customer sees a product, he thinks it's just a textile product. So there's a lot of detailed, complications which happens in a product. So for this, we need a quality production leader who is able to define the quality aspects. We have an industrial production leader who is able to define the clear, specific. Of course, all the specifications are standard. It comes from France, but in order to ensure that it complies with our requirement, the kind of stitching, the kind of machines which the supplier is using, does it comply with our standards? So that is a position which is a production leader, industrialization. Then there's a supply chain, a production leader supply who manages the capacity, who manages the peak and the low seasons, who is ensuring that the communication with the supplier is well managed. Because when you I just give an example. When you take a product like shoes, when you look at shoes, it's very simple. But to produce the shoes, you need somewhere between 40 to 80 components, which are different, right? From sole, insole, compound, lace, mesh. So it is a combination of fabric, it's a combination of so many things, labels, etc. So in order to communicate with different stakeholders, different vendors, so that's the role of supply chain. So I mean, that's how we work in production, so that we have a good synergy right from the development, right from the massification of the product, right from the end quality of the product, and to ensure that the product is available. As Aviral mentioned, it's very important that we produce what we sell. We produce what we sell. So sometimes we could sell a lot, sometimes we could sell a low. So when we sell a lot, how agile we could be, how we can bring faster the product in the store. Sometimes maybe due to different complications, we don't sell a lot. So how do we ensure that we maintain, the similar stock in production and things like that? So variety of jobs, variety of complications, and that's the richness and the diversity of the job.
Yeah, and I think from what production, once the production shifts it to the warehouse, and that's where logistics takes up and the respective roles comes across. I'll not go in each and every role, but it's, to put it very simply, once the production shifts it comes to the warehouses, and there is transport leaders who make sure that the stock reaches on the time to the warehouses, takes care of the stock, takes care of the right planning that that stock come to the warehouse. Then you have the warehouse leaders who manages to ensure that the entire ecosystem of the warehouse is well maintained under the safety targets, under the space management, the efficiency, the productivity inside the building, and with the coaches individually who manages specific scope, be it in terms of inbound or outbound or inventory management inside the building, or the e-commerce leaders who takes care of the deliveries to the customers, who take care of the delivery to the stores, or the last mile leaders or the last mile experts who manages the complete ecosystem of e-commerce or the picking, packing. Then we have some specialized roles of business analysts inside logistics who takes care again the flows of all the systematic flows. Then you have the automation leaders. Then you have the what we call the concept leader for expansion and development of logistics, because you need to open more warehouses, you have to take care of the safety security of the building. So these are multiple roles that are there, which kind of flows through how the entire ecosystem of supply works from the time it's conceptualized or the demand is created or the demand is thought of, to the time it's produced, and to the time it's procured, produced, and shipped across to the respective stores for the customers.
All right. I think that's a lot of there's a lot of rules actually that we talked about. I think we talked about just to sum it up. I think for our viewers, I think we talked about retail supplier, we talked about procurement managers, then we talked about roles in production, and then I think a lot of roles in logistics also, because it's a very big cycle of logistics, and I think there are a lot of roles in various subdomains, right? And so I mean, it's interesting, but I think I would want our viewers to actually if there is any any specific questions about any of these roles that we right now talked about, I think you should just put down your questions in the chat, and I think we'll take it up pretty soon. And I would encourage everyone to ask the questions in the live chat, right? Because I think we're discussing a lot of stuff at the technical scale here, and I think it's often easy to actually it's not that easy to actually get your questions and queries answered like this from experts, and I think now's your chance. So why not? And thank you so much all for actually answering all this. But one of the questions that we've received is I mean these are the roles that we are usually open at Decathlon in the supply chain management domain. But how does one make a career in supply chain as a supply chain manager or as a supply chain management professional at Decathlon? Like, how does one go about actually building the profile, or maybe what are the skills that person needs to develop? And maybe Vishal, do you want to take this up? Maybe because you said that you have a lot of roles and you handle all this. So.
Yes, I think that's an interesting question. So a career in supply chain starts with the first and the most important skill set, which is analytical mindset. Because every decision we take in supply chain, we have to go through a couple of numbers. We have to analyze a big data. We also have to coordinate with a lot of teammates, because supply chain is connected with multiple teams. So a strong communication. Apart from that, supply chain, we know after COVID and everything, it's always a problem. So mindset of problem solving and really working to find out a root cause and identify it and find a solution out of it. So these are the very, very basic, I would say, soft skills that we really focus a lot on, and a little bit of technical skill set as well. Also a team player, because we are a sports company, and I'm sure that represents a good fact that because this candidate will be working closely with so many different actors, that means players of the same team. So we have to have this strong alignment between different teams. So a team player is kind of the basic skill set that we look forward for when we plan to hire someone in supply chain. And yes, let's say if the person wants to grow in supply chain, definitely we have multiple roles in supply chain management. That includes in demand planning. Also, we have supply chain manager. We have it. We have the similar role in production as well. But that supply chain management will be more towards production. Here it will be more towards demand planning. Now, how to take a further step? Definitely, let's say from a retail supplier, you want to become a supply chain manager. One must gain the master skill of the basics of supply, a couple of strategic points, and after that, also leadership posture that can really drive and lead a team in future. So this is the overall mindset and skill set and the teammates that we are looking forward for, and that is the ideal career path for supply chain.
All right. All right. Any other thoughts on that? Because the thing is, there's a question actually that popped up in the chat, and I think it's somewhat also related to the other question that I also had lined up. So BYC, I think, right? And asked whether actually what are the job roles offered for a fresher in this field, and I mean, especially if the person has sort of completed supply chain management from IIM. So, and the related question that I had was, do you really, because supply chain management is often seen as sort of an internal function at an end, but now that we talk about it, I think it sort of has a lot of internal and external stakeholders, because you get to interact with sort of, you actually have to be, first of all, very close to the consumer, because you need to understand what are the designs, as you said, right? What are the designs that you need to actually will be in trend. You need to understand what are the different variations that you need in the product, and how to source them, demand, plan the demand for them. And then obviously you're dealing with the stakeholders on the production and logistics side. So it's sort of a very overall sort of role. And I think, are those skill sets, really something which you will probably, study at, in an MBA program, or how do you go about actually acquiring them? So maybe, I mean, Avil, do you want to take this up?
Yes, yes. So thanks for the question, Kumar. For me, I think today we do not have a kind of a limitation when it comes to supply chain jobs at Decathlon. We do not have a blocking if a person has done his MBA or might not have done his MBA. One of the major reasons why this is, I would say, not a limitation for us, because in our teams internally, we have set up a very strong induction or integration plan for the newcomers. As you rightly said, for us, somebody who's a fresher and joins without an MBA or maybe after an MBA, they always starts from the base, the starting role of a retail supplier, because for us, for a person to really reach at a supply manager responsibility level or an operational process manager responsibility level in production, you really need to understand what is the way of working of Decathlon. It is not much different compared to other supply chain companies, but ideally, the one very important skill that we look for is the mindset, willingness to learn new topics, and we usually also discuss with our team members very often that are they enjoying this job? Because there are times when we might be super good at our job because maybe we are responsible, but we might not actually love it. you know so in our company we really try to work with people who are passionate. I think most of us in Decathlon are super passionate about sports. Ultimate aim is to make sure how we make things beautiful and better for our final customer. It can be done from a team member who's working in the store, explaining the customer about the product, or it can also be done by a team member who is working back end behind the curtains, but he's working on the numbers to make sure the stock is available at any given point time at any given point of time for the customer. It could also be a team member working in the factory late night to make sure that the quality of the products that my customer will have is A grade. We have all, so for us, it's more about willingness to learn because we have a very strong induction integration plan in place. It's about their interest, if they're super interested in supply chain. Third is cross-functional ability. Because when we're working in supply chain, as you said, we deal with we interact with a lot of team members in cross domains. I also talk to a customer. I talk to my internal customer who's a sport leader in the store. I talk to my production team members, for my logistics team member. So this cross-functional ability to communicate and to convey the right message, because sometimes you can provide the solution, sometimes you approach somebody who can provide you the solution. So the communication part is a very key skill that we look for. And for us, I don't think MBA is a necessity. We do not have a blocking if someone has done an MBA. It's always good. They might come up with skills which are maybe they are already conditioned on those, but we already have we also have internal exchange. I would say we have an exchange team to train our team members on the soft skills, how to be a better communicator, how to, how to give feedback. We have these trainings internally organized. So I think we are quite sorted in that way. So I hope I was able to answer your question, Kumar.
Yes, in fact, yes, I think quite to the T, and thank you so much, Viral. And I think and you heard it, guys. I mean, I don't think MBA is sort of a prerequisite for actually sort of if you actually want to build a career at Decathlon in supply chain management roles. And I think that's one of the that's something which is also in line. I think stands in line with the philosophy that basically if Decathlon is actually making sports accessible for everyone, I think because there are a lot of people who are interested in sports and would also want to make a career at Decathlon. I think this makes sense and it sort of translates well. And I also like to talk about here, I think, in this particular program that we're doing, certificate program in supply chain management, and we're doing this with SPJMR and in association with Decathlon. And you can just have a look at it. I mean, it's one of the top-rated programs. It's got a rating of 4.68. You get to learn from SPJMR faculty. You get the executive alumni status. And you also get a chance to actually learn from Decathlon experts, do a live industry project with them. And at the same point of time, you obviously will stand a chance, sort of, if you do well, you will stand a chance to actually be eligible for roles at Decathlon and other top supply chain management companies. And I think that's one of the fabulous parts of this program. So you can have a look, what all you'll get. I think you'll get a lot of live and recorded learning sessions, and then you'll get soft skills training, you'll get interview preparation, you learn topics like warehouse operations, tech in supply chain planning, purchasing, procurement. I think all of these things are what we just talked about in the webinar. And it just sort of, highlights how this is a very comprehensive program that you can always go for. There's a link in the live chat. I think it'll keep coming up in the live chat. We've been putting it up. It's also in the description. So do make sure that you check it out. And obviously experts like, you'll obviously learn from experts like Vishal, Viral, Hemant, and, and so, I mean, you will always be, available to help these guys out. And so, all right. So, I mean, I think I've talked enough about the program, and, sort of, I'd like to take up one more question, which we have received from a community. SCM is sort of like very interesting career, but being a sports enthusiast, I think, how is it, that Decathlon allows, to combine the two, and how is it that the sports background is going to help any candidate actually, make a career in this?
Again, good to connect sport and product, with the job that we have. So why we believe in let's say retail supplier part, as a user of the product, we believe the sport very well. you understand the market and the consumer requirement much better compared to a non-sporty person. So that is the biggest advantage, let's say, on demand planning side for a retail supplier to understand the market, how the sport is growing, and how can we make the sport accessible to my specific sport. So Decathlon at overall all the sports, and then whatever sports we work for, we go in detail of that one. So that is where being a user of that particular sport, being a particular sporty person, that really helps to decide better quantities, better forecast, better piloting, and which are the very important skill set that we need in a retail supplier. Parallelly, it's something connecting with the production. So I let maybe Deepak explain how production and sport is connected.
Sure. Thanks, Vishal. I think being sportive, of course, you have a lot of advantages. You know the product, you know the usage, you know the benefits, and most importantly, you have the passion. You have the passion. So when right from the time you design a product, right from the time you conceptualize the product into the production, you are very much connected on that product. When you talk about the shoes, the comfort on the shoes, should it be lower, should it be higher? When you run on road, what kind of a feeling you need, what kind of a cushioning you need. When you run off road, what connect a lot with the product, and this helps you also to take some decisions when on the manufacturing side. Of course, all the products have a clear standard specification, which are designed with a very high tech, technical people. But when it comes to production, there are always certain things which can go wrong as well. There could be certain product which could be inferior, something could be superior, and things like that. So being sportive, it can also help us to take sometimes some commercial decisions on a product when it comes to what kind of stitching, what kind of seams, whether this seam can have any impact on the user, whether this kind of using the zipper can have a bad effect. So it has a lot of holistic view. So obviously, when you have the passion towards sport, you are much more connected to the product. You are much more in a better position to relate to a product, to see, okay, what kind of a change needs to be done during the production, during the quality aspect point of view, and things like that. So that's one side. So quality leader can always give his own experience on the quality point of view. Passionate industrial production leader can always give his point of view during the industrialization, during the massification, and of course on the passion towards supply, you can always know also the seasonality of the product, knowing that when the community of sports is gathering, what kind of events are happening, and a larger perspective. So not that the others can't do it, of course the others also will be able to do it, but obviously being sportive, being passionate on particular sport can help you relate and connect with the product much more stronger.
All right. Thank you, Deepak. Hemant, do you have some views on this? Overall, Hemant, anyone?
Yeah, I think like Deepak explained, knowing the sport, knowing the sport will always help you first with better connections at work, because when you have 5,000-6,000 people who are sports passionate, and of course it's easy to connect, it's easy to talk, and trust me, I've been a sports person all my life, and when you actually want to connect with somebody, all you do is invite them for a game of badminton or football or whatever. And it's very easy to take up the relationship. It works very well inside the company. And of course, for the job, I think Vishal and Deepak have already explained it, how knowing the sport will help you to do it better. It's just connecting to that much more closer than it's just an Excel file. When you see the description, it feels more closer than just an Excel file is saying some random XYZ things on your face. That's why it's nice. It always helps you for sure. And we've seen as well historically that people who have some sports passionate, not necessarily a great player, but there are people like Harsha Bhogle maybe not a great cricketer, but a very great passionate cricketer. So that way, it's really going to help us if you're passionate about your sport at your work, and we really believe that as sports passionate people will go great lengths inside the company of Decathlon.
Right. I think you summed it up pretty well, by saying that, it'll just help you make it, more than something like just an Excel sheet, right? And I think that, so also sort of, is an apt description for this entire discussion. But I have some questions I'd like to take up from the live chat, and I think a lot of people have been asking about, for example, does Decathlon really hire the freshers, and that we covered? Will the supply chain management job be in store or in a warehouse or in a corporate office? And who would like to take this up? Because I think we've discussed a lot, and this question is by Aniket Paleka. And I think we've discussed a lot. I think it's going to be spread across. In my opinion, I think from whatever discussion we had, it's going to be spread across a lot of these places. But anyone who's up for a discussion on this.
I can take it up. I always love this question whenever I talk about where you are based out of in Decathlon. And Decathlon doesn't believe in corporate offices. We always believe we stay as close to the customer as possible, or to your work. So when you're working in production, you are in a production office, literally. A good office for sure, good working environment, but at the same time, you're very close to the production facilities. Logistics, I'm sitting in a warehouse as we speak. Looks nice, but still it's a warehouse. Then the retail suppliers, they're always based in a store, a flagship store, and they're always there on the shop floor of the store half of the time, or maybe 80% of the time, because we believe that's our DNA. That's where we would like to be. We don't believe in corporate offices. So you will be either of them, but good that we're always located very accessible to many team members wherever we are. So which means depending on the role, you have your work location decided. But great work location, great environment. But at the same time, we believe we stay where we work or what we work on.
But if you look at the positive side about this, you obviously get to access the sports and the playgrounds all the time. And obviously, as you said, that you're always closer to the consumer. So you always, have a finger on what they're doing. But yeah, always at the end of the day, you will feel free to just take up the playground and play the sport that you want to, right? What better than that?
Exactly. And from the CEO of Global to the CEO of India to the last guy of the company, everybody is at the same place. Their work environment.
Nice. All right. So there's Roshan Aire, and he is asking us, he has 10 years of experience in operations in QSR industry, quick service restaurant, and he's looking forward to join the supply chain management course. But how will his current experience sort of help him in supply chain management? Do you have any insights? Any of you, do you have any insights on how this particular program is going, or how basically this entire training will just help him? So I think what Roshan, if you're asking about the skill sets, I think our panel would be, I think, what are the skill sets that you actually need to make the transition? I think that's where I think our panel would be more, probably we would be able to answer your question then, right? So, do you have any questions? So what are the translatable skills probably you see in QSR industry that people can take across in supply chain management? And then I'll sort of talk about if we actually have the program, have that all in the program or not.
For me, I think a lot has been spoken already, but I can just focus a little bit on production point of view. What is important, as many of us spoke, for us in Decathlon, we would like to hire more personalities. That's important. Personalities, of course, degrees are important, but personalities are more important. Personalities who have a strong experience, who have good skill set, who could improve their skill sets. That is important. So we need a lot of skills, especially when you talk about production, supply management. We are talking here about leadership. We are talking about communication skills. We are talking about good listening skills. We are talking about active, participation, involvement, crisis management, production, how it works. You can have one day people not coming up to the factory, one day people, raw material not coming to the factory. So how are you able to manage the crisis? How are you able to manage the conflict? There's also sometimes conflict. So a mix of all these, characters, a mix of all these behaviors will definitely help curiosity, analytical skills, communication. So passionate on the sport itself. So a mix of all this, and in some specific jobs, of course, we need also technical, when you're talking about product, you need a strong skill set, on the product itself, on the technical aspect of the product. So, all in all, I would say, of course, we hire a lot of freshers as well who don't have any experience, but that's why, as we said, personality matters, and how well you're able to induct into this experience, this opportunity, and how much you can contribute, how much of added value you can bring on the project. So a mix of all this can definitely help people join our project. We are growing, we are opening more stores, we are selling more products, we are doing more production, we are having more, doing more warehousing, more stock and things like that. So job organization is that you have also different kinds of roles. Journey in Decathlon, what different kinds of roles he has done also in the organization.
All right. Okay. So I hope I think Roshan got a fair bit of overview about how basically this how his experience in operations in QSR industry can probably help build a career at Decathlon. In terms of soft skills, I think Deepak pretty much explained it all. But I think in terms of operations also, I think it's just a product that is changing, right? Because the overall essence of understanding what operations is, understanding what the nuances of what demand planning principles should be applied at what point of time, and all of the technicalities still remain the same. And so I think this particular program will obviously help, I think, Roshan build a career in Decathlon and in the retail industry, in the retail sporting good industry. So and I think one of the other questions that's coming to this point where we where we talked about how you're also opening up a lot of roles and you're always growing and opening a lot of stores. One of the other things that has all come up in the questions that we received from the community before the webinar, I think, is how is actually because supply chain is always sort of logistics, and the supply chain industry is always considered to be sort of a male dominated industry. Is it really true? Is that something which is a myth, or would you like to address that question? I think, Hemant, would you like to take it up?
Yes, I think it's a fair ask, and generally that's the myth when you're outside the industry. But at least what we saw in Decathlon, what we try to do is to really make our environment very, very lucrative for women employees. So very happy to say, logistics being the way it is in terms of in warehouses, we are at 24% women diversity today in all our warehousing employees, and in our leadership roles we are at 20% already. And at the Decathlon supply chain level, I think we are at 26%, if I'm not wrong, 37%, sorry. At 37% in our total female leaders. So yes, I think the opportunities are immense. It's just, yes, of course, it's not exactly a desk job, which means you're sometimes on the floor as well to understand, but it's very, very interesting, and it's very, it's good for both the genders. There is no gender specificity into the role. As long as you're passionate about sport and supply, I think you're at the right place for the job. And like I said, I've been about 9 years in the company now, only logistics. And I've seen so many women employees doing great in all the supply chain. And in the demand planning, I think it's even more. Logistics is still at 24%. I think demand planning is even close to 50, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's around 35% plus. So
yes. So it's all in. There's no. It's more. It's I think the concept of the old, but with the new ways of working, with how the life is now, it's very easy for women team members as well to be part of the entire supply chain management.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense in today's day and age, and I don't think any gender sort of holds any bars on what kind of careers you can choose, and that's something which I think Decathlon is also aiming for, right? So, and one of the other questions, moving on to that, I think is it really, I mean, what are the career opportunities for a person who wants to switch to supply chain management, sort of with some experience in, say, retail, or probably any other industry? But let's take retail for now, I think, because that was one of the questions. Or probably you also want to take up some similar industries. Like how is the experience in retail, manufacturing, or sort of production is going to help in supply chain management industries? Anyone who wants to take this up?
Maybe I'll take a part of it. So thanks for the question, Kumar. With retail, as somebody who comes from a retail end, the biggest advantage that the person or the profile brings with them is they know what the customer needs. What they're the closest to the customer. They know what do we need in the store to make the product, how to highlight the product better, how to communicate the right benefits of the product to the customer, and what are our customers actually looking for. We have seen over time certain trend in change in the sales, certain change in the trend of sales. Like during the time of COVID, we were selling a lot of fitness products, all those dumbbells and everything. Everyone wants to do the gymming at home because the gyms were closed. There was no other place they could practice fitness. There were a lot of cycles that we sold. But after COVID became kind of stabilized, we've seen a different sales trend. This information is the biggest advantage that a person who has experience in retail will bring to the supply chain management. The market understanding is one of the key skills that we need in supply chain management, because in supply chain management is, if I talk in layman terms, right product at the right place at the right time. But to know that when do we need the product, to know when do I need rainwear, when are the monsoon period going to come, things like that. When is the snowfall planned for the year? When do I need my padded jackets in the store? Things like that. So this information is more handy when it comes to people who are working on the front end side, or the profiles who are working on the front end side. And when they come to the supply chain management, they can obviously add value by using this skill while doing the forecast planning, because focus is the trigger point. A demand planner will do the forecast, then it's communicated to our production team members for them to align the industry in order to work on the capacities, raw material buying, production planning, etc. All these things. So I think the biggest advantage that a person who has experience in retail can bring to supply chain management is understanding of the product and understanding of the customer, and how in services in the back end can we make things better for the front end, because the front end is the image of the company. How we deal with the crisis scenario, how we solve an issue which the customer is facing. It could be a technicality linked to the product. It could be a manufacturing defect sometimes that happens in a product. It could be a return. It could be a after sales service. There are so many things that that person can bring to the supply chain management, which will really add value in we becoming more reliable than ever in our forecasting the trends that we have for the future.
And I think that is one of the reasons also that the Decathlon has most of its employees, start working out of stores, right? And because as we discussed, and it's to stay closer to the consumer. So I think, and retail also, has somewhat a similar this thing, right? So, good. I mean, great. So, so now, if you had to look at some other industries, like for example, if someone has worked in manufacturing or production, is it going to be the similar case? Because I think manufacturing production is already, sort of really close to, say, the production in logistics, the production subdomain in logistics. So maybe anyone else wants to take it up, or Abhinay, if you want to continue with that.
Can you please pardon the question part?
So I mean, how is the production experience going to probably help anyone transition to supply chain management role at Decathlon? Like,
so production, in fact, is already a part of supply chain. Manufacturing, planning the capacities to design the overall planning and coordinate with the suppliers. It's a part of production. So for sure, production is a part of supply chain. So that experience is already a supply chain experience itself.
All right. And so moving on to the next question, maybe. So how is the sort of work-life balance in supply chain management at roles at Decathlon? And maybe Avinil, do you want to take this up?
Okay, I'm not the best guy for this, but for me, I think work-life balance in supply chain management roles, for me, I would say it's decent. It has been a little tricky in the last couple of years because of COVID, because we were reworking on a lot of things. The kind of workload that we had previously versus the kind of workload that we have in the new context. The context is now more than real. It's changing every day. It could be increase in prices, it could be capacities blocking, it could be certain other competitors coming up. There are many things that are changing globally. Even just to give you a context, the Russia-Ukraine war had an impact on the inflation in Egypt. This is how well supply chain plays a role. So that's why I think on the work-life balance, from the I would say on the company side, for us today, one of the industrial giant projects for the company Decathlon Global as a whole is to work on data. Okay, is to be more data driven, because we have been existing for, I would say, 46 years now. Globally, Decathlon Global 46 years, Decathlon India more than, I would say, production more than 22 years, retail more than 13 years in India. So we have a lot of data. So today, one of the major strategies of the company is how well can we organize this data so that it can be utilized well by our team members to plan their actions and the strategies. So, because I remember there were times when we did not have SAP as a supply chain management tool. We used to work on ERP, so we had to manually extract a lot of things. Today, things have become much more, I would say, advanced. We have AFOs, we have APOs, we have different versions of SAP, different versions of supply chain management tools in the warehouse, in services, in production, to help the team members become more efficient in their ways of working. Okay. In terms of work-life balance, I would say it's good, but in supply chain, there are different milestones in the year that we work. For example, this period of, I would say, May to the month of July or August, this is one of the highest peaks that we have to work on, because we are preparing for the next year. So we have operational horizon that we are working on, that is 2023. We have tactical horizon, that is 2024, that we are working on. So there is certain peak in the year where, yes, there's a little bit of disturbance in the work-life balance, but I think it also depends on the team members, how well they adapt, how competent they become, and how efficiently they develop their way of working. A bigger impact is coming from the company because they are focusing on data, bringing in more tools, so that we invest our energy or on the actions that will really add value, and to decrease the non-value added tasks. Coming on I would say, as I was saying, on the milestone part, there are different times of the year when you have high workloads. I mean, we have to accept it. There are times we work more than the regular hours, but that's okay. It also depends. I would say a bigger credit also here is dependent on the leader, the kind of leaders that we have in Decathlon. How well are they able to motivate their team members to really help them organize their work? Because sometimes we can be super competent in our work, but we are not organized.
Yeah.
That also becomes a hindrance in the work-life balance. So
Right.
a good leader who can guide you in the right direction also plays a pivot role in you having a good work-life harmony.
Right.
I can say.
And I think that internal training program that you mentioned about the soft skills will also
Yes.
help, actually create leaders within the team who can actually, be better managers.
Yes.
Any other views on this, Hemant, and Vishal? Do you have any other views?
Yes, in fact, I think Avir already covered maximum of the points, but time management is a key in supply chain. We definitely have ups and downs in some circumstances, but overall the process is quite, if we plan it in advance in very well, one can definitely manage can have a very good work-life balance. We have 5 days working, 2 days off, and we also have kind of a DTB survey, we call it, which is specifically for humans. How satisfied are you coming to the work? And such surveys are being really taken very seriously. They really ensure our internal teams, our leaders, that we are at the right track, in the right mindset, and able to manage good work-life balance. So there are many more advantages as well on top of it. But yes, the key is time management.
Right.
If you learn this key in supply chain, I don't think so you will come across any work-life balance issue.
All right. Thank you for the insights, Aviral and Vishal. And so I'll just wrap this up with a couple of questions. One is, which is what I've seen in the live chat come up. Ratiswaran is like, can a sales professional? And I think this is related to the domains, manufacturing, production, the ones that we talked about. He's also the skills. Are the sales skills also sort of going to help? And I think Ratiswaran, we sort of touched upon this. Maybe you want to just jump back in the webinar and just sort of tune into that portion of the webinar. A few minutes back, we discussed how actually being closer to customer will actually help you in the supply chain management domain, and you should definitely listen to that answer. And so, what are the tools and technologies that Decathlon uses in its supply chain? Planning, demand planning, everything, production. So, what are some of the tools that you use? I think Hemant, would you want to take that up?
Yeah, I think we have a very strong legacy tools built inside Decathlon, because I think Lavril was mentioning almost all the tools in his answer about how they help you in the work-life balance. So we are predominantly SAP based. We use a lot of modules of SAP, CCFMS, APO, Pro.com, and then there are a lot of tools that are built over the last 40 years inside Decathlon. Because one of a big concept of Decathlon is also that we are backward integrated, not only just in terms of production to supply to stores, but also in terms of the IT and the backend tools. But now with the new age that we are working a lot of partnerships as well. We believe in a lot of partnerships. So we use other tools from the market like ClickPost for e-commerce, for some piloting tools that we manage, the demand planning tool. There's a new thing called FNR that we use, and we have inbuilt tools called CubeInstore. So there's a big combination of what we developed ourselves, which is very specific to Decathlon. That's like about 70 to 80% of the total thing runs on what we developed, and then the 30% of it is what comes from outside. So that's how we have it. And I think we strongly believe on that. It is part of the DNA to cut down the cost at every single place, to make sure we make the sport accessible and affordable to everyone and to many people.
Got it. And I think there's some love coming in from our, I think, viewers. Lokesh is sort of saying that Decathlon, I just want to say how much I love your products, and it's consistently, the top in quality. And I think, and so I think that also sums up, what we've been discussing, how you sort of maintain the quality, and similarly, make the products available at every point of time, at any point of time in any stores across India, across the globe, in fact. And that's what this entire supply chain management module is about, and the domain is about, right? And thank you so much. I think Hemant, Vishal, Aviral, and I think Deepak is already left, but thank you so much for actually joining and sparing time. I know it's the festive season, and I think you guys will be already packed. Your schedules will be already packed. But thank you so much for taking out time today and sharing these insights. on careers with Decathlon, at Decathlon, in the supply chain management roles. It was really insightful and great to have you all on the session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.